Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Prime Talk. Today, I'm really excited to have a special guest and a good friend. Today, I'm having Jake Barnett. Jake is the VP, Vice President of Business Development at Fortunet. And Fortunet is a leading investment banking and M&A firm for e-commerce businesses. We'll touch more about it later on during the episode. But for now, Jake, welcome to the show.
Great to see you, man. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. So today's story is going to be the story of you, the story of Jack Barnett. You're going to share with us everything. Who are you? Where were you born? Where are you from? Where'd you grow up? How'd you begin your professional career? Station to station until we reach out to where you are today, especially with the world of e-commerce. So without further ado, let's jump right into it.
Yeah, let's do it. I'll admit I don't mind talking about myself, but it's a big topic, of course. So I'll give the abridged version. So yeah, if I start now, I'm 36 years old. I'm kind of a digital nomad, and I've been living abroad for the last about 12 years in places like Argentina, Colombia, the Philippines. I've worked for myself. I've now working for Fortunet. I've worked for the aggregator side as well of the business, but that's kind of where I am today, and like how I got there.
Start the early beginning. Where were you born?
So to start from the beginning, born in Palm Beach, Florida. I'm actually here now at my dad's house visiting, and I grew up here, and nice childhood. I'd say lucky to have a loving family, and a lot of good education, and
but
just
your parents, what kind of industries were they involved with when you were growing up?
Yeah, my dad's a lawyer. He would work for franchises and restaurants. My mom's an interior designer. So growing up, I think especially with my dad, I got to see a lot of exposure to entrepreneurs.
Did he own his own firm, or he worked for a firm, your father?
He would work for some of the restaurants. I don't know if you remember this one restaurant, Kenny Rogers Roasters. He was the general counsel for them.
Oh, so he's like a corporate lawyer within the corporation.
Yeah, exactly.
Got
we used to when I was a kid, we used to get to go to visit the restaurants before they were opening, and so it was cool kind of getting exposure early to some of this entrepreneurial parts of it. I think that was, if I look back, that was
influenced you. Yeah. So exactly. Also, when you were growing up, did you do anything entrepreneurial in nature? Did you try to make money so you can buy yourself stuff, or any experience?
Yeah, there? I did some little things. Looking back at the time, it was just hey, I just saw an opportunity. I was like, hey, okay, to make money, and I was happy to do it. I remember once in school, they had this book buyback, the super expensive textbooks they have when you're younger. And I don't know, I went to this private school, and I guess a lot of the kids just didn't care about the money, but some of these books were worth a lot of money. And people were just kind of leaving them. I collected a bunch of them and sold it back, to the point where the school store was like, listen, you can't do this anymore. You're costing us too much money. So talk about reimbursements, right? So, there was little stuff like that. I always had an itch to, think outside the box, and always just enjoy making money and doing business and stuff like that. So
finding ways to make some income. So also, were you focused more on making money growing up, or more focused on sports or academics, or just being social? What was the environment for you?
Yeah, I'd say kind of just being social. I mean, to be honest, I never really I enjoyed school, but I didn't love it, and I didn't, academia was not my passion. We started working I'd say fairly young. I think I was 14 when I got my first job. We were always kind of forced really to get summer jobs, and
when you say we, you mean you and your siblings?
Yeah. I grew up with 3 sisters. Nice. So we all got that kind of work ethic instilled early on. And
so as a teenager, where'd you work? Restaurant business, hospitality?
Yeah, I worked at a restaurant. It was a restaurant and bar here in West Palm Beach, Florida, called Bradley's. And yeah, I mean, it was really hard work, right? And this was an outside, inside kind of bar. And in August in Florida, I mean, it's super hot, and you're working 10, 12 hours. I was a busboy, a bar back, and then a bartender. I mean, it was really tiring. My dad said, looking back, he got me those jobs so that I would learn that I didn't want to do them.
And this is the street. This is how you make money in the real world. You have all these skills, and this is part of the skill, but you got to experience that at a early age. This is pretty good.
Yeah, it was fun, cool stuff. So I went to school in Vermont for boarding school. That was like a really cool and like beautiful place to
That was your
be.
high school? You went to boarding school for high school?
That was a high school, yeah. So it was like
That's
really,
unusual, no?
yeah, it was really like interesting, like, great education and like,
But what was the trigger for that? Because it was like an elite play, or is more like you need a good framework, or
I think a little of both. Like in Palm Beach, there's a lot of people that go out to boarding schools,
I didn't
and
realize
at the
that.
same time, like, it's this kind of old school New England thing. But at the same time, like, I was a little framework probably helped me when I was that age. So that was cool. But then, I studied abroad in Israel in high school. After high school, I went and like studied Hebrew over in Israel, and
Hold on, you went to what, 12th grade to Israel or something like that?
yeah, when I was in 11th grade, there was like a 6-month study abroad program.
Got it.
So, I've always loved to travel, always loved to kind of just do things like a little bit outside the box or take a different path. So, seen that kind of over and over again.
Okay, and after high school, what was your next move?
Yeah, I spent like a year in Israel, like hanging out, I wasn't really, I was just kind of looking for what to do. I knew I wanted to do something different. I didn't want to jump straight into college. So I spent a year and then I ended up going back to the US, and I was like taking some classes and then had this kind of internship at this company, this financial company in Boca Raton. And this really kind of like turned out critical towards my, I'd say my path or my trajectory.
Okay, so
Really
let's
cool.
start slapping the years on this. So
Yeah.
this is kind of your, I guess, breaking an entry to the professional world, right? It sounds a bit more serious, right? So what year was that?
Yeah, that was like 2006.
Okay, so
20.
2006, you come into this financial firm. It was kind of the peak of the heyday before the financial crisis of 2008, 2009. So take us there.
Exactly. I mean, looking back, it was a really exciting and like unique opportunity. I was like an intern, and it was an intern program that like anybody who like was a college student that wanted to like hustle could go and just like get this internship. We were like cold calling, people to like sell them financial packages. I got in there and I just thought, first of all, like it's inside in the summer in Florida. So I had air conditioning. That was my main motivation to
As your
go.
upgrade, yeah, the first
That
upgrade,
was,
yeah.
but then I showed up and, first day I got like 5 leads and most people were getting like 1 a day.
Oh wow.
Second day I got like 6, and like there was maybe 15 people. We had a board with all like the leads you would get. And at one point I had more than like everybody else combined. So it seemed like, I fell into it, but it obviously was a natural fit, I just, so I ran with that. Long story short, they ended up giving me a full-time job, kind of pushing me out of college to like work with them. Timing turned out to be great. This company ended up getting bought for like $800 million while I was with them. I didn't get any options, but it was really amazing to see this experience. And then at the same time, like a couple years later, like the company almost went out of business with the financial crisis. So I got to see in like 2 years, first 2 years, this really roller coaster of like super highs, super lows.
Boom bust,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, it was really cool. I mean, luckily I came out of it, unscathed and all for the better. It was a great experience. I was making good money. Through that, I met some guys that were doing like high tech, some guys in San Francisco, and I joined them. And for the next about,
That was your next station, right? So you were
yeah,
there, you were the financial firm for what, 2006 till 2008,
yeah, like two
and then
years
you moved
there.
to basically the technology area.
Yeah, it was like B2B, like software as a service, enterprise tech. And I started doing that, like working for a couple startups that were, going raising like 3, 5, $10 million pretty early. It was all about kind of like exploring new markets with new products. And I worked for a few of these, like none of them ended up being successful. I mean, that's kind of the game with
I guess
the
that's a little tough terrain. 2008, 2009.
yeah.
Financial markets have been shooken up. Um, so it's yeah, and business cycles has been a kind of it was a recession basically.
It
So
was tough times. Yeah.
yeah,
It
to
was,
lift a business off the ground, it's totally understandable. So all right, so
yeah.
what was your next move? What was your next step?
Yeah, I did. So I did that for like a few years, working for a couple different like startups. And then what I decided to do was launch my own agency. And my idea was I had done all this like lead generation and customer acquisition stuff. And I created this system that's just like really scalable. And, I thought, okay, why do this just for like one company? Why don't I do it for like 5 or 10 and make like 10 times as much
So let me get
money?
this straight. So your experience, with all these business
Yeah.
cycles and these companies environments, but you excelled at bringing, bringing business in, right, with all the
Yeah.
leads and the touch points, touch pays, all the cadences. So you said, I did this successfully with all these companies. Why don't I just open that up at scale to other firms so they can really, make it turnkey for them instead of trying to harvest it from the inside.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for that. So it's like, I would just do lead generation for my own deals as like a sales guy and a VP of sales for these tech companies. And then I just thought, okay, this is much more scalable, as like a salesperson or biz dev person, like it's just you can't like scale. So I thought, okay, I created this system and brought in some VAs and this was like
So what year was
2000.
that when you went independent like that?
That was like 2013.
So of a stretch of about from 2008 all the way to 2002, about 5 years, you were kind
Yeah.
of within the tech world,
Yeah.
and excelling, I guess, in your position. But the companies themselves had their own challenges breaking into the market. So 2013, that's it. You kind of detached from them, and that was your full time focus,
Yeah,
the
yeah. And
agency.
it was a situation where like this company I was working for went out of business. It was a tech company, raised a bunch of money and it didn't work out like 9 out of 10 do. They went out of business, they owed me a bunch of money, and like I was just like, well, what am I gonna do? I just jumped into it and it really kind of took off.
And where were you living at the time? We were in California, or
I was at the time in Colombia.
so you already be kind of for
Medellin,
these all these
Colombia.
years, you're already kind of a digital nomad for working for these
Yeah.
companies, or because you were able to go independent, then you were able to go live wherever you want.
So, even when I worked at these tech companies, I'm living in Florida in like 2009. I was working from home. So like it was weird. I was like 21. I had no structure or direction, but they're like, yeah, just work from home. Like maybe you'll move to San Francisco or whatever. But so I've been doing the work from home thing for basically my entire career.
Wow.
In 2010, like early 2010, I like visited Argentina and just loved it. I saw like, I just said, hey, like this looks like an amazing opportunity. I thought I'd go for a couple months. Ended up staying for 2 years. I ended up getting a job. And actually, I was just telling the guys that I lived in Florida because I was like, let's keep it simple. It was remote, so I just, at the time, people with, the remote work was not accepted. So that I started living in Argentina and then I just ran with it. And I lived in there for a couple years. I lived in Colombia for a couple years. And then, so I got started doing digital nomad stuff like 10, 12 years ago.
Got it. Okay, so let's jump back to 2013. You open the agency, you open your shop, and take us to, I guess, milestones or the trajectory, or what was the next move?
Yeah, it was really cool. I just kind of like was hustling for a couple clients. I throw up a website and, and then I just start hiring a couple of people, at its height, it was working with like 8 really cool, like tech companies that are all raised between 10 and $50 million, like helping them penetrate new markets. Like it was really cool getting a lot of different exposure to products and markets. And I realized that, it was just, it was really fun, but I realized in the end that like, it's a service business with like probably not a ton of like personal growth in the end. So I
For
did it
you,
for
you mean it for yourself?
yeah, for myself, so I did it for about like 5 years and I made great money and I got to travel around the world. If you ever read that book, 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, like I was doing it, making 6 figures with this systematized business that was literally making my clients millions of dollars a year. Like couldn't complain, but after 5 years, I got bored with it, ironically. And
You feel more? It was more like, you grew it was working, but then you kind of plateaued, and then you felt
yeah,
like, an itch for the next challenge.
exactly. Like I was like, hey, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. I'm not really learning anything else here. Eventually clients start getting annoying. And so that brought me, I guess, till around 2018, 2019.
All right. So what was the
Um,
next station? Yeah. What was the next
yeah.
move?
At that point, I was living in the Philippines. I've been living there a couple years. I remember I was sailing. I'd gotten a sailing license in Thailand, and I went on this trip with some friends to Croatia. And I was kind of like, the business was running. I wasn't really paying attention. It was starting to go down just because I was like letting it go. Look, and I said, okay, it's time for something new. I'm sitting watching a sunset in Croatia, inspiring moment. So it's time for something new. I don't, I'm not sure what it is. I wanted to leverage like my customer acquisition, system, but find something new and challenging. And then 2 weeks later, I'm at this bar in Manila. I'm smoking cigars and drinking whiskey with a buddy. And I met a guy who founded one of the first aggregators. This was back, no one had heard of Thrasio. Like no one had, even the business model was totally like new and being pioneered. And I said, listen, this sounds pretty interesting. I don't know what I can do for you, but
Hold on. So this is somebody from Thrasio, somebody even not even from Thrasio, just
not even for
an individual
Thrasio.
that let me just aggregate e-commerce brands on Amazon or something like that.
This guy like fell upon the idea of like buying Amazon businesses, and he bought like the group bought maybe 15 in like 2018 and 2019. So it was super early in the space. I had no idea. I knew Amazon sellers from being a digital nomad. I knew that they were making a bunch of money, and maybe, I knew they didn't kind of have that efficiency of like a traditional business. And I just thought, okay, this sounds really interesting. I'm looking for something new. Let's jump in and give it a try.
So give it a try, what, to join him to find brands so that you can buy them? What was your objective?
Yeah, so that was really my kind of thesis getting into the space, was I could leverage like customer acquisition towards M&A deal flow, finding brands to potentially purchase.
Is that aggregator still around, by the way?
This is a company, they're not, they're kind of like, I call them failure to launch. They're still around, but they haven't, they had the best idea, but like they didn't really have the execution down, and they didn't raise all the money that all these other folks had. That was like 6 months in 2019. And through those guys, I met two of the co-founders of another aggregator that I joined in December 2019. They would go on to found one of them, one of these aggregators that raised like 400 million bucks. And I was their first hire, going out, finding deals. It was really fun. I'm not a finance guy by background, but it was really like, talk about being challenged and learning new stuff. But yeah, this was December 2019. Like, I remember at the time thinking like, this is an amazing opportunity. The prices that you could buy these businesses at, it was like they were giving them away, right? 2x profit multiple for a business that's growing 50% a year. Like, I'll buy any business that's doing that. So I remember saying to these guys at the time, I said, let's just buy anything we can right now, because it's not going to get better.
What, to the first aggregator or the second aggregator?
I told both of them. I said, the market's, this is so good. And then, fast forward a few months, we get COVID, and, bunch of competition jumping in, and prices going through the roof, multiples tripling and all of that. So, yeah, it was definitely came true, and even more than I imagined.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpackage here, because in the short run of 2-3 years, so much has happened to in e-commerce and all these business models and theses, and the money raise. I think all in is probably over $10 billion.
Yeah.
So let's try to unpackage a few elements here, and then also we'll I guess before that, let's connect to where you are today with the Fortunet. When did that come in, and then we can cover more the ground and world of M&A. Give us a recap, a synopsis, because you're like you're from like. Okay, so connecting to Fortunet, we'll be able to kind of cover, like I said, you were there from Genesis, and the early creation of this whole industry and niche. So yeah, so you were with the two aggregators, and then Fortunet came in, or what was the next move?
Yeah, so I met Fortunet like looking at their deals when I was with this second aggregator. I would do a lot of like reaching out to sellers, like any seller's gotten a million emails at this point. Like I was doing that stuff, but then I was working with all these different advisors and brokers in the space. That's how I came across Fortunet, was like reaching out to their clients, wanting to buy their business. I got a lot of exposure to all the different advisors. I had chased many deals from Fortunet. They always got way too expensive. And so, I thought, okay, it was like late 2020. I saw how crazy the market was getting. I saw how much competition it was to buy these deals. And like, this was like peak craziness with the aggregator market, like approaching into 21. But I thought, listen, like, I don't, it's fighting really hard for these deals. And I saw how much value was being left on the table by sellers because they, they're great at selling, but they didn't really understand what their business was worth, how to structure
Yeah,
the
they're really good
deals.
at selling products on Amazon, not necessarily selling businesses to other organizations.
Totally, totally. So like that kind of combination of factors led me to like leave the aggregator side. I was being recruited by a couple other aggregators and like I was like didn't really want to do it. And Michal, the CEO, like had emailed me like 2 days before I was leaving this aggregator, just saying like happy like Christmas or whatever, or Hanukkah or New Year. And I said, hey, I'm leaving. Thanks, thanks, but let's keep in touch. And she said, before you do anything, you have to talk to me. And, I had gotten to know Fortunet, I got to know them more, and I saw, how much really was put into selling a business. And long
By
story
the way, I
short,
want to interrupt you here. So, guys,
yeah,
if you want to get to know Michal a bit better and kind of really dive into the world of M&A, check out the special episode we did, a 3-episode series about M&As and exits on Amazon. So fascinating. She's
she's
really a
fantastic.
global leader with that domain. So yeah. So
Yeah,
she said
she's
you're
real.
not making a move without me, basically.
She's a real heavyweight and she's very persuasive and decided to get me over and so in January 2021 I left the aggregator. In Feb I joined Fortunet and yeah, I mean it was a great change. I mean talk about good timing as well because the market was on fire and I had this really deep network of sellers that I had met and was able to like bring a lot of those that would have gone direct, bring them into a situation where they had an advisor fighting for them and they're able to get these much better outcomes. But yeah, so I switched over in 21 and I guess it's been almost 2 years now. It's been quite a ride, like between starting on the aggregator side, early on and, now seeing the sell
Seems
side.
like you're almost midway because I think as far as I understand the history of aggregators on Amazon, if 2018 was the early beginning, today we're 2022 recording this. You were like for the first 2 years, on the aggregator buying side, and then the past 2 years on the M&A advisory side.
Yeah.
So take us through those 4 years, the history, the early beginnings. What was the profile? What was it like for sellers? And then the mid years and this past year, which it's because every year really had its different dynamics. So if you being so deep from within side, and having all these
Yeah.
unique
Yeah.
vantage points to take us there to those moments.
Yeah, sure. Like, so when I got in 2019, I'd say it was super nascent still. I think 2018, like some initial deals were being done. At the time, if you wanted to, like, you could sell an Amazon business, but you were going onto one of these like brokerage, like platform websites, just listing it and people would just buy it. And like, it was total buyer's market. You're selling for 2x, maybe 2.5x profit. So in 2019, like when I got
Well,
in
so
there,
these platforms that are available out there, it's more of a cookie cutter situation where there's no customization, no appreciation of the actual value for the buyer. That's why it's a buyer's market. So buyers can really get a steal because the seller is not being optimized properly. They're put on a shelf, but let's say put on a shelf in the back of the store and some sort of a clearance aisle. That's why, if you can repackage everything and position it and optimize it and you put it in the entrance of the store with a nice, beautiful environment, the consumers, is okay, I'll pay a premium for this because it's a premium product, premium business.
totally. Yeah, exactly. So, and the sellers didn't realize like what their businesses were potentially worth. And the platform broker sites were not like really fighting for them. They were
I
just trying
think
to do the
just to be fair
deal.
to them, they probably didn't realize also the
Fair enough.
platforms.
Nobody did.
Yeah,
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 nobody
because
did. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
cookie cutter. Yeah, so you don't know how valuable is this cookie. Maybe for this neighborhood, it's worth $1 for Manhattan. You can sell a cookie for $10.
And that was the market at the time, and fair enough. And like getting 2.5 times profit is like not so bad if you have a lot of other stuff going on and you need the money. Like there's situations where it makes sense to sell a business for that or even less.
No,
So I
especially
don't
if you
blame it.
found unexpected success, because some of these or many of these sellers out there back in the day, all of a sudden they became 7-figure businesses, making a million, two, even
Yeah,
10 million a year, and all of a sudden making even $1 million net profit a year. They're like, whoa, what the hell just happened? I
yeah,
was just, just a plumber, I was a mother, just, trying to do something on the side. I have 4 kids. All of a sudden, I'm making millions of dollars of revenue, and all this EBITDA. All of a sudden, somebody's gonna pay me 2.5 years in advance because I don't know how long it's gonna last.
totally.
They're right because things are dynamic. So they're making all these killer exits. So that was the psyche, I guess, and the mindset and the scope back in 2018,
Yeah.
2019. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Listen
and
to
it
you.
was like you said, it was a different generation of entrepreneurs then. I think a lot of them have stayed through and succeeded, and we see them now, and they've gotten so sophisticated. But at the time, you had a lot of people who just kind of got in, they found a niche, it was early, and like you said, they were just happy to get out. And like, as a buyer, you thought, wow, like somebody's working part-time on this business, it's got 25% margins, it's growing, we buy the business and then just put new pictures up and it's like 30% sales lift. Like, it seemed too good to be true, which is ultimately kind of what led to this craze of like 2020, where, tons of aggregators getting into the space, 10 billion plus being raised. Like, we were doing deals, but like I would then start and say, hey, I found a brand, like amazing brand for like 3x. And the aggregator would be like, nah, it's way too expensive. And then I'd say, listen, like the market's changing, we see. And very quickly it was like, okay, like offer the 3x. Well, now they want 4x and now they want 5x.
Sellers market very quickly. Yeah, the whole pivot.
Very quickly. Yeah. Yeah. And it was but I got in early, and like I would message people and like, send them a message on an email or whatever. And like people say, oh, I didn't even know I could sell my Amazon business.
Lack of awareness. Yeah.
And like I had guys I met in 2019 and 2020 that now I know I'm like friends with, and they were doing like 3 million sales in 2020. Now they're doing 20 million. And like, so getting to see that journey from like the aggregator side as well as from the seller side, not as a seller, but just through the people I've met, has been really cool.
So what would you say, and if we just hardcore focus on the multiples, it started from 2.5, and then the scaled up to what, peaked, average, right? Peaked to what, 5, 6, 7, 10, 20?
Yeah.
What was
Yeah.
the
And like the 2.5 would be like, 2 up front or something like this, that was like, it was like half a multiple earn out. And like what we saw in 21 was, I'd say kind of at the peak craziness was like 6, 7x plus cash up front for a lot of deals. These were some amazing
And where
businesses.
did that reach? That was like late 20. That was 2021. That peak moment, or the peak multiples.
Yeah, I'd say second half of 2021 was like, I mean, and it's like the rest of the economy. Look at the stock market, like look at any asset
That
class.
was a
Look at
climax. That was climactic.
That was climax. Look at Bitcoin. Like everything was like crazy. Like there was all this free money, buy anything. This was a new space with tons of like excitement around it. So like that was when it was like, yeah, like 6, 7x. Even then that wasn't like the typical, but we're talking cash up front. I mean, that was quite
Lucrative.
the
Let's, once in a
payout.
lifetime opportunity. Lucrative. All of a sudden you
It
become,
was.
there's a liquidity event. You
Yeah.
become, a millionaire, from
Yeah.
a side gig that kind of, snowballed into something that is amazing. So, all right, so peaked in 2021 towards the end, I would say Q3, Q4, and now take us.
Yeah.
What was
Yeah.
the trajectory from that point?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Like, I think we saw, like I did, and at Fortunet, like having so much exposure to sellers and buyers, we saw, I think, a lot of the writing on the wall of like, of course, we couldn't predict this like macroeconomic, like global downturn. We'll see if it's a recession or whatever it is. But with our industry, like we saw some of this stuff coming. So, we saw like some issues coming about with like supply chain, container prices. I saw a lot of people's margins getting slashed in late 21. And, I thought to myself then, imagine if you're an aggregator with like barely any operating experience who bought businesses like on a bumper year with COVID at very high multiples. It was kind of like, looked like it was going to be a recipe for disaster. So of course, like sellers aren't immune to these issues. An aggregator with 30 brands that they're just trying to get going, like they weren't prepared, I think, in some situations to handle
Simply
that.
no precedent. This is all new dimensions, right? This is, if they
Yeah,
survive, it's a new layer and tier of professionalism. I mean, becoming e-commerce corporations, within, I guess, being born or formalized or forged within the Amazon domain, and to see if the thesis is right and it has its longevity. So even turbulent years, it patches up, and then in the heyday and the big years,
exactly.
they get back the return on their investment.
Yeah, like I think some turbulence is like not unexpected, and it's fair enough. And you've seen some people pioneer this model. You've seen some aggregators do incredibly well operating businesses. You've seen others that have stumbled. So where we are today is a situation, you know, you got 100 plus aggregators that are kind of like still, you know, that have raised a ton of money. Maybe like out of those 5 or 10 have like paused acquisitions. 3, 4, 5 have like kind of sold their, you know, portfolio. We're in a situation where there's still like 80 plus buyers with, you know, billions of dollars of as we call it, dry powder, money to be spent on acquisitions. Um, you know, is the market is down a little bit, but if I look towards 2019 and 2020, it's still up versus that. So it's interesting now, like in 21, everybody was like, oh, this, you know, I'm going to sell for 10x. If it's 7x now, I'll go for 10x. Now I'm in a situation where everybody says, yeah, this is like nuclear winter. You can't sell a business. All the aggregators are failing. You know, I'm going to wait 2-3 years until, you know, maybe the market recovers. And it's actually much better than what people think. So perception versus reality today. It's like, yeah, the market's still pretty good. You know, aggregators are, I think, getting smarter. There's other kind of buyers coming in. They're focusing more on, you know, niches that they really like. They're focusing more on like logistics and operations. So I think we see a little bit of a regrouping happening with some of the buyers, but at the same time, you know, a lot of demand still, but the demand now is focused on the, you know, really good businesses, you know, I can get into that, but we still see deals that are, you know, 4 or 5x cash up front, like, and that still can be pretty compelling, I believe.
That's good. So
So
I want to dive in, like you said, I want to open this up a little
yeah,
bit. So if, you know, I'm an Amazon seller sitting down, you know, listening to this, watching this, I understand, okay, there's still money to be made. 4 or 5x is tremendous. Like it's really
yeah,
good. Because if if your business is making, I don't know, 300,000 a year right now, in EBITDA, and you can get 5x, you become a millionaire, right? And then you have the time and money to figure out what you want to do. You can do it all over again, right? And you have much more
invested in another
dry
business.
powder. Yeah, you have much more capabilities. But yeah, yeah, tell us, like, what makes them special? How do they, how, you know, in a nutshell, how can they figure out if their business is worth, I mean, even putting their stuff on the shelf? Like, what will be the reasoning
Totally.
right now? Yeah, go ahead.
Totally. I mean, and on that note, like one thing I've learned is selling your business is incredibly like stressful. Even if you have someone like Fortunet doing the heavy lifting in your corner, fighting for you, like don't go through a sale process if the business isn't likely to be ready for a sale, or at least a sale that meets your expectations. So, you know, a lot of the things that make for a good valuation are just what make for a good business, right? Like a business that's growing, a business with good net margins, right? We look for businesses that are doing, you know, kind of minimum 18%, 20% net margin, businesses that are growing, you know, in today's market, like 5, 10, 20%, that's great.
Per year, yeah?
Businesses, yeah, per
Double
year,
digit growth, yeah,
exactly.
per year, I got it.
Yeah, if you've got double digit growth and like 20% plus net margin, and you're in like one of the categories that's good, like baby, healthcare, you know, beauty, pet, housing. I mean, there's a lot, home, there's a lot of categories that are really like good and premium. And if you build a brand that, you know, really stands out on Amazon, as difficult as that is, and you have, you know, subscribe and save, like, you know, all these different factors, you know, this is what makes for a very attractive business today. Bigger businesses definitely get a premium as well. You know, if you can hit like $1 million plus profit per year, you're getting a bump. But, you know, now the businesses that have those strong fundamentals, real brand, you know, that's maybe one of the biggest changes I've seen is 2020, we didn't care about brand. We're just like, okay, they got a ton of reviews, like they got the ranking. Who cares about brand? This is a search-based, you know, purchase. Nobody cares. Nowadays, there's a real premium toward brands. And I see that being reflected also in like the businesses that are successful are also building brands. So, you know, chicken or the egg, I don't know, but
Yeah, it seems like back in the day, the early days, which we were just trying to kind of buy EBITDA. There's a brand out there,
yeah,
but more the EBITDA capability, so it's a bit more technical. But today they realize for this technicality to work of EBITDA, the driver of that is really having a brand name that is differentiated, resonates, it's just a good business, and it makes good business sense to own it, to have it, and grow it, and nourish it. It has its good, healthy trajectory. Much like any product that you sell, you know, a good product sells well. So a good business with good
yeah,
business fundamentals should sell well, just like any other product, because the business is the product when you kind of put it on the shelf. So As long as you have these fundamentals all in good place, like all these features that you mentioned, all these highlights that your business has, which just are just layers that indicate that it's in good position. Subscribe and save is something awesome. And then you have, you can see that there's constant demand, and over time, not to I don't know if a seasonal business is its own niche, right, of buyers.
Yeah.
I would say
Yeah.
that's so. If you're in a niche business, there's still a market, by the way.
For seasonal.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
you're in a Christmas business, but you're making bunkers, you're making like a lot of money. So is that something
Yeah.
that's still in demand there for?
Yeah, like I'd say it's like, of like the 11 data points that we look at for a business, like that is not considered a positive, but there's buyers that, like you said, are specializing in more seasonal, you know, just because like not every business has to have like 10 check marks next to it to be
No,
attractive
I'm
and
saying because some
for an
people
acquisition.
actually love kind
Yeah.
of taking the year easy, and then a quarter or two they run the business and make their money, and they're good to go. Like any other good ski resort, for example. I mean, for there's a whole industries out there that make a good living, and they kind of love that, like that lifestyle. So if whoever the buyer is, and they have that lifestyle already, and they're very successful at it, because when they do that quarter or two of in the season, they do amazing. So
And
it's
as
something
and
to think
as like a
about.
professional operator, like somebody who has a portfolio, you can get a bunch of seasonal businesses with different seasons and just say, okay, this
Year
one's
round, yeah,
summer,
I got that. Yeah,
this
that's
one's
smart.
Q4, and maybe Q1
So if you're a winter
you
business,
have
is exactly what they're
Valentine's.
missing, because they got the summer and spring and even
Yeah.
fall, and boom. So think
I've
about
seen
that
sellers
also.
do this. I've seen sellers do this too. They say, hey, I need to balance out a little bit. Let's get some let's get some pool products to complement the Christmas stuff.
Got it. So
Yeah.
so instead of buying, you just create from with your own brands. You just create those products. It's
Yeah.
also definitely also an option to level it. So within a year or two, you have a much more diversified business, and yeah, if you get that more of that bump, that premium, position for putting your business out there.
It's higher risk for sure. And some of these sellers that are really Q4 focused with their sales. I mean, wow, talk about stress.
Yeah, got it, got it,
90%
got
of
it.
your sales in Q4. Whoa, geez, with the supply chain, with everything. I mean,
Got it. Got it. Okay, so let's
insane.
start recapping everything. See what we got so far, so we can hit the final round. So,
Sure.
born and raised in Palm Beach, Florida. Father's a lawyer. You also got to kind of start working a bit early at 14 years old, out at the restaurant or the real world, and then went to Vermont for boarding school, and then also for program in Israel. And after high school, you went for a year in Israel as well. And then you came back, and you already kind of got an offer there in 2006 to some sort of an internship to this financial firm, and you did exceptionally well compared to the other peers that you had. So they scored a job, and you stayed there for about 2 years, from 2006 all the way to 2008. Then 2008 all the way to 2013, you got drawn into the tech world. All along these cycles, you were able to kind of live wherever you want. You already had the remote work position for yourself, so you lived around the country and around the world, and also kind of more honing into South America. And then 2013, you realize that you have really good capabilities in creating a service and an agency for other organizations or tech companies to bring in the leads and do all the nourishment and the follow-ups and all the cadences, so they can really drive performance and sales and go to market. Um, and then 2013 2018, you're in that position with the agency. You feel like making a good living, you're kind of tasting the world, you're moving around, you get the good experience, but there's an itch, something, you need something else, that to kind of drive you and inspire you. So on a sale in Croatia, you get a chance to, by divine intervention, somebody from the e-commerce world, the Amazon selling world, they had the ingenious idea to kind of aggregate and position together, companies or brands that sell on Amazon. So it drew you in. You joined very, very early on into the aggregator, boom, and then you did a year or two over there, and then you transitioned to a second aggregator, and then 2020 late or early 2021, you positioned to the other side, where instead of buying the businesses, you were helping the seller to sell the business. So you would join along Fortunet, and then 2021 until today, almost 2 years, you were really hard into the mix of seeing all the pivots and the turbulence that's happening. But nevertheless, today still is much, much more better position. If you get 5x today based on the 2x in the early beginning, that's a hell of a great position to be in. Okay, it peaked at 7 or 8. That's fine. Those peaks can come again if all the sellers right now, as an industry, keep their heads on the targets, and keep on delivering and providing good products to consumers out there, and to always do the right thing and develop and add more and more value. and that will create good experience for the marketplace, for consumers. It all starts there, by the way. Then it trickles all the way down to having good business for the next 30 or 60 years. Or if you ever want to kind of fulfill yourself a little bit and have a liquidity event, you put yourself on the shelf, you have a Fortunet by your side, and boom, then you can really recalibrate your life to see what you want to do next. Did we get everything correctly so far?
Totally, man. Great. Wow. Great memory. And I really do love your last point there, because, the interest in like M&A in this space is driven by the success of ordinary sellers. So you're absolutely right. And it is amazing. I mean, I could talk an hour, and I've done presentations where we look at like the profile of all these millions of sellers, and, there's this like select group of like, I don't know, 10,000 sellers, and we've met a lot of them, and that are really crushing it. And though that's the reason there's so much excitement to buy these businesses and in e-commerce in general. So like, yeah, I totally agree with you. Just, don't make a goal is to sell your business. Just make a goal to make an amazing business. And if you can sell it at some point and do something else or whatever, sail off into the sunset. I never hear that one, by the way, but just concentrate on building a great business, and then you'll have so many options available for you.
Nice, makes perfect sense. All right, so now let's head into the final round here. So 2 points. The first will be is if somebody wants to reach out and connect, where can they find you? Yeah. And the last thing will be is you kind of touched it, but if you can expand maybe more on that, what is your message of hope and inspiration for entrepreneurs listening out there?
Yeah. Jake Barnett, Jake at fortunet.net. Look me up on Instagram, Jake by the Lake 213, if you want to see some of the social side of the travels. Always happy to connect and connect with sellers or entrepreneurs. I mean, I love this stuff. I feel like I'm on like Shark Tank as my job, and it's so cool. So yeah, thanks again for having me, by the way, and cool conversation. It's funny. It's a funny question. Like, what's the message for hope? Like, in today's day and age where the stock market's down 25%, where sellers are like thinking that we're in a nuclear winter for M&A and like all these things, like I'm actually very optimistic. If I were to say like for our community, like one really like boring and technical reason to be optimistic right now is like shipping prices. So I've heard they're down to like now back down to like pre-COVID levels, $2,000 container from like Shanghai to LA. I'm really excited about that, because it's going to show, it's going to have more and better businesses for like potential acquisitions. I think buyers are going to show a better performance with their portfolio, which is going to increase demand. So like, I think there's a lot of reasons to be really excited for 23. That's my,
let me capture this for a second. You're saying, let's get technical. Let's talk economics. Yeah. You see the deflationary signals and the macroeconomics that indicate, okay, the change and the rise back up is around the corner. So hang in there. That's a hope, right? That you want to, so hang in there, focus, because the indicators are there. Put your moves on them, perform on them, and then you'll see how everything kind of goes around the bend.
Yeah, like I think that's a great summary. And like we're at a point where, when the blood is on the streets and when people are most pessimistic, and everybody, I find that that's the time to think, okay, we're probably at the worst point. We've got upside from here. I think the shipping costs in particular are going to be like really great for us. It's a double-edged sword, because maybe there will be a pullback in consumer spending as well. But if you can, grow your business and capture market share while having lower, costs, then you could see, I think we will see, a lot of really good businesses in 23. But I'm a constant optimistic. So that's like, I think, a nerdy reason to
I like it. I want to develop on the blood on the streets. When there's blood on the street and you see kind of everybody around you giving up, that's actually a very good indicator for you not to give up. If you can, if you have to give up, you're already in the hole and you're losing millions of dollars, and they're coming for your house. Okay, go bankrupt and protect yourself. Yeah. But if you see you're still making money, you're making less than what you expected, but you're still making money, and if everything kind of balances itself, you'll make more money. That's an indicator. Clutch onto that and do what you got to do to survive. Of course, if you're losing money, you're burning a big hole, that's a different environment, different world.
Now's the time to double down. That's how I look at it. If you're in a position to do it, right? Like if you've got some cash, if you've got the cash flow, like, if you're getting crushed, then okay, then you go into damage control. But, now I'm investing in the stock market. I'm optimistic about Amazon and e-commerce. Like I think there's a lot of reasons to be, when you think about M&A, to be optimistic. There's all these new buyers interested in new businesses, multi-channel, DTC. Like, we're seeing this, what I think will be like aggregator 2.0 coming in 2023. So those are a few of the reasons I think to be optimistic as sellers. And, in general, like, hey, we live in this amazing time. Like, we're in here in this amazing community. We were just at this MDS event a few weeks ago in Mexico. Like, we are in a really exciting space with some really smart and cool people. So that's something I'm just get excited about.
Yeah, good people do good things, which creates good businesses and good value for consumers. It's kind of a virtuous cycle. So keep yourself on the cycle, work hard and play hard. There's a lot of hope in the road along. Beautiful stuff, Jake. So thank you so much for joining today. Hope everybody else enjoyed. Stay safe and healthy. Until next time.
Thank you, Yoni.